In this video, I'm going to debunk several lies that people are telling about the situation in Israel. Because as it turns out, most of the things that people are saying about what's going on are complete lies. Either they don't know they're lying, which is the point of making this video, or they know they're lying, in which case they are choosing to side with one of the most evil terrorist organizations in the world. So speaking of that, lie number one. Hamas is fighting for Palestinian freedom. Nope, they are fighting to destroy Israel and kill as many Jews as they possibly can. The Hamas Charter, when they were founded in 1985, called for the complete destruction of the Jewish state. As we saw in all of the videos that emerged from over the weekend, Hamas went into Israel and killed as many people as they possibly could. Men, women, and children were not spared. They murdered, pillaged, raped, and desecrated their bodies. And many of the hostages that they took were not even from Israel. There were many Americans who died as well, but they don't care. All they saw was somebody in Israel, and they wanted them dead. They live-streamed murders that they committed on Facebook. They wiped entire Jewish towns off of the map. They even took the phones of two young girls that they kidnapped from the rave and called their parents in order to brag about it. Lie number two, Israel is occupying Gaza. That is a lie. Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005 under Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. They dismantled every Israeli settlement that was in Gaza, forcing Israelis to leave their homes. They left behind stable infrastructure, including greenhouses that could feed Gazans. What followed was the Palestinian people in Gaza electing Hamas to lead their government. And Hamas proceeded to turn Gaza into a terror state focused on waging war against Israel instead of building a civilization for the people who live there. Gazans live in abject poverty today because of Hamas. They built rockets and terror tunnels instead of schools and hospitals. In the years that have followed, Hamas has used Gaza as a launching point for rocket attacks against Israel. And people point to the fact that Israel blockades their border with Gaza, which they do because it is run by a terrorist organization that seeks to destroy their country. Lie number three. Israel has spent the last 100 years ethnically cleansing the Palestinian people. Nope, all Israel has ever wanted to do is exist in peace. There has never in world history been a country on the land that is now Israel called Palestine. But there have been Jewish states. You can go visit the city of David in the old city of Jerusalem today that dates back to the 5th century BC. Before the founding of Islam as a religion. Through violent wars and conquests, the land then came under the control of the Ottoman Empire. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed, the Mandate of Palestine was then created by the British government, as did a push to create a Jewish state in what is today Israel. And as Jews began immigrating back to their ancestral homeland, conflict started to break out between the Jews and the Arabs who lived there. So in 1947, the UN partitioned the land into a Jewish and Arab state. Jews got these two tiny strips of land in the north, as well as this giant desert in the south. And the Arabs received Gaza and what is today the West Bank, while the city of Jerusalem remained a neutral site. Now, Israel accepted this, but the Arabs did not. And the new Jewish state was invaded by 5 Arab countries. Fortunately, they ended up winning the war. And in doing so, conquered more land in a defensive war than the partition plan had originally given them. Between 1949 and 1967, Gaza was occupied by Egypt, and the West Bank was occupied by Jordan. And then in 1967, all of these Arab countries again chose to wage war against Israel. But before they could invade, Israel struck first. And they conquered Gaza, as well as the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, and they conquered Jerusalem and the West Bank from Jordan. Again, in a defensive war. Israel then gave the Sinai back to Egypt when they made peace with each other, making them the only country in world history that has ever voluntarily given up land conquered in a defensive war. They would do this several more times. Lie number four, Israel has denied Palestinians a state of their own. There have been 5 separate occasions where Palestinians were offered their own state. In 1937, they rejected the Peel Commission to create a Jewish and Arab state. They rejected the UN partition plan in 1947, as I just talked about. The attempt at peace in 1993 with the Oslo Accords fell apart due to Palestinian support for terrorism. They rejected the 2000 Camp David Accords, where the Israeli government offered the Palestinian Authority complete sovereignty over Gaza and 97% of the West Bank. And they again rejected it in 2008 when the Israeli government offered to dismantle all of their West Bank settlements. Lie number 5, Israel is indiscriminately killing Palestinian civilians, including children. This could not be further from the truth. Hamas are the ones who invade and indiscriminately fire rockets, not caring who they hit. Military targets are not. The IDF, meanwhile, has very strict rules of engagement when it comes to taking on terrorists. They give civilians warnings before they strike back. And they don't target civilians, they specifically target Hamas. Now, the reason that there are a lot of civilian deaths in Gaza when the IDF responds is because what Hamas lacks in military might in comparison to Israel, they make up for in their attempts at propaganda. They deliberately choose to set up their base of operations and fire from heavily populated areas, using the civilians who live in Gaza as human shields. For example, during the 2014 Gaza war, Hamas set up their base of operations in a hospital. Every single civilian death that happens during this war is the fault of Hamas. If Israel wanted to level every human being in the Gaza Strip, they could do it right now. But they don't do it, nor should they, because it is a lie that they indiscriminately target civilians. Lie number 5. Israel is an apartheid state. This is by far the biggest blood libel that opponents of Israel throw at the country. 20% of Israel's population is Muslim. They have the exact same rights that Jews do in the country. It's one of the few countries in the Middle East that allow Muslim women to vote. Muslims serve in prominent positions in the Israeli government. Not only that, but when Israel reconquered Jerusalem in 1967, they voluntarily ceded control of the Temple Mount, the holiest site in all of Judaism, to the Islamic Waqf of Jordan. And that is why to this day, it is illegal for Jews to pray on the Temple Mount. If they do, they will be arrested. Does that sound like something an apartheid state would do? And at the end of the day, Israel is not the reason that there is no peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It all stems from the fact that Palestinians do not recognize the right of the Jewish state to exist. They seek its destruction. It's the only reason why there has been constant conflict in the region for the last 100 years. And it won't end until Palestinian leaders give up their bloodthirsty ambition to take down Israel.